Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you some of the underrated authors I think you need to read more from. And when I compiled this list a couple days ago, I didn't realize that I made it all female authors. So this is quite a, which I thought was really funny. Like, as I was compiling these books to get them ready for the video, I was like, wait a minute, these are all female authors. So I guess subconsciously I just wanted to have something, you know, support other women, you know, with some all that fun stuff, because we live in a patriarchal society now where our bodies really don't, we have no control over, no right to kind of rule over our decisions with our bodies. So what is really the point anymore? So we have to support us women where we can, and especially when we're still allowed to read right now. So in the words of Taylor Swift, F the patriarchy. So let me kind of step off my little soapbox and kind of get back to this video. So these are authors when I was looking at my shelf that I've read a lot of books from, but I feel like they're not as well talked about on kind of social media platforms, whether it's BookTube, Book Talk, all those sort of things. So these were the ones that I definitely think are underrated and have produced a lot of amazing work. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, I first have Kate Quinn. I've read 4 of her books, the first one being The Alice Network, The Rose Code, The Huntress, and then also most recently The Diamond Eye. And she does historical fiction novels, specifically kind of looking at the World War II era in particular. She is an amazing author, and the first book I've read of hers was the Alice Network, which I think I read at the perfect time. I read it just after my grandmother passed away, and it provided me with a distraction, which I really appreciated, and ever since then I've been a huge fan of her work. And what is interesting too, I feel like this is very common now, is that for some of them, you like, in particular, they don't really, like, this is not very common anymore, is that it doesn't have like a past and present storyline. For the most part, it kind of sticks within the time frame of those characters, so you may follow them kind of within different kind of different years within their story, but for the most part you don't have like the one that is like the present day storyline and then going back like 70 years to World War II. So it kind of stays within its timeline. And what is unique too is that you have characters that kind of the characters within her world intersect with one another, so they'll make small little cameos here or there in the other ones. So it's always fun to kind of keep your eyes peeled to see which character might, you know, make an appearance in the newer one. But it's very interesting. I like how she kind of showcases women's stories throughout history, and especially ones that have been long forgotten. And for example, in The Rose Code, it follows the women that were behind a lot of the code breaking that was done, especially with the Enigma machine that was done by Great Britain during World War II, and they are very much kind of overshadowed. The women's contribution in the code breaking is very much overshadowed by like Alan Turing or like all the other men that got kind of the credit for everything. In addition, for the Diamond Eye, it follows probably the most decorated sniper in world history, who happened to be a woman, and she's kind of just lost throughout history. So I really like how she focuses on the untold stories of human history, specifically in the World War II genre, kind of the World War II era. So yeah, I really like her books. I feel like they definitely stand out for me, and like I said, the Alice Network will always be near and dear to my heart. Next up, I have Kate Morton, and I think I've read all of her published works. She has, sorry, I'm looking at my shelf here because I didn't want to bring everything down. So the first one is The Forgotten Garden, The House at Riverton, The Lake House, The Secret Keeper, The Distant Hours, and The Clockmaker's Daughter. And for the most part, this is one that kind of has the present day and past storyline, and it kind of switches between the two, but it's mostly centered around some sort of mystery where someone in the present day either like finds an object or something that they're interested in that is connected to a story in the past. So you are kind of working along with the present day character to uncover whatever they're looking for in particular. So I think my favorite of her works is definitely The Forgotten Garden, and this one follows a girl named Nell who grew up her entire life thinking her parents in Australia were her actual parents, but I think it was on her 18th birthday she finds out that she was actually adopted, and this kind of threw her whole life upside down. And so when Nell has passed away, her grandmother is going through her things and finds this very old and very unique fairy tale book, and she really wants to know more about Nell. Where did Nell come from? Like, where is her kind of that lost side of the family that no one really knows about, because Nell basically was found abandoned on a ship coming from the UK. And so her granddaughter embarks on this journey to London to figure out more about her family history, and then we flash back to the late 1800s, where we follow this other character as well who's somehow connected with this kind of modern day like mystery that we're looking into. I think it's best not to know too much about the plot other than that, so but it's just beautiful. I think what is really unique too is that you feel like you are discovering this information with the present day character in a way that it doesn't feel like you're just being told everything kind of info dumpy way. Like, you're kind of uncovering the mysteries of the past with the character, which makes it a lot of fun. And this one was just very heartbreaking. I feel like this author does a really good job at showing, like, looking back, there's a lot of like foreshadowing stuff thrown in here that don't make sense until after the big reveal is, and it's just very interesting, very heartbreaking, and again follows women throughout different times. This one's kind of Victorian era, World War II is one, kind of Downton Abbey era, and kind of modern day as well. So yeah, she kind of bounces around, and I think she has a newer one there. It hasn't been released, but I know a couple years ago announced it was somehow related to like the American jazz era, which I think will be a lot of fun. But I definitely recommend this author. I know someone just posted recently in my comments that they are so happy that I introduced them to Kate Morton, and she's become one of their favorite authors. So I think this is one that, like I said, she's not very well known within the BookTube book talk world, but I think she is a very she's such an amazing author, and I think deserves more recognition for that. So this should come as no surprise if you've been watching my channel for the past like year or so, but my favorite author hands down is Louise Penny. She has written in the Inspector Gamache series, which again is my favorite series of all time, and I think she's just really good at crafting these characters and creating themes of found family, where I would just for me, I really marathon this series basically throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. I read like the first 2 or 3 prior to that, and then I just marathoned books, books 4 through 16 or 17 throughout the course of the pandemic, and I was just so attached to these characters in a way that they provided me with some escapism, especially being from Canada. Within the first year of COVID, we weren't allowed to go home. It was a good year and a half before I was actually able to go and visit family for the first time. And so this provided, because it takes place in Canada, it provided me with that escape. I felt that sense of being home in Canada with my family. I got that feeling from this, and I will forever be thankful for these books for kind of help providing me with that comfort that I think a lot of people needed during this time. But yeah, she's just an amazing author. I've fallen in love. Like I said, she's my favorite author. She is just amazing, and especially because this series, I think the 18th book is coming out later this year, and because you follow these characters through basically almost 20 books, you do get a lot of character arches that span a lot of the novels. There's kind of recurring narratives that are still taking place, that everything is interconnected, and how she's able to, I think it's How the Light Gets In, I think it's one of the best books I've ever read of all time. The build up for that over 7 or 8 books was just amazing. That one was just fantastic, and how she's able to create such lively characters with such unique personalities and explore the light and dark aspects of humanity and how light should always win. I really enjoy those themes, how she's able to kind of like create like such a home with that does not exist outside of our head, but yeah, beautifully crafted. And I think, like I said, she's my favorite author, so you need to go. I know 18 books is very daunting, but the payoff will be well worth it, I promise. Next up, I have Martha Hall Kelly, and she has written the Lilac Girls trilogy. So they follow different, so there's Lilac Girls, which follows Caroline Faraday, who was an actual real life woman and her contribution to World War II. So you get the story of her in two other perspectives. You get the a concentration camp guard, and then also someone who is in that concentration camp, and eventually all three stories become interconnected. We follow Lost Roses, which follows Caroline mother Eliza during World War I, again with two other narratives that become interconnected. And then the final book in this trilogy is Sunflower Sisters, which follows their great aunts during the Civil War. And it's truly based off of this real family and their contributions in basically all of these main American wars, like Civil War, World War I, World War II. It's very loosely based, so there is some liberties, but I think she just tried to stay true to what they actually did with some kind of fictionalized stories created around them. But yeah, there's something, like, I read this book and then I forgot about it, and then I reread this again with my aunt for a book club a couple years later, and I just was like, I was kind of kicking myself for kind of sitting on this book, because even the second time around, it was amazing. There's something about her writing style where you, like, I could sit down and read and look up and be like, oh my god, I already read 50 pages. And yeah, just her ability to interweave a lot of these different kind of perspectives and how they eventually all are become entangled with one another is very interesting. Like in the case for Sunflower Sisters, we follow Georgie, like the great aunt of Caroline and Eliza within that family tree, and she wants to become a nurse to help the North during the Civil War. And then we follow a slave owner and her slave. So you obviously know how the slave owner and slave narratives are connected, but you don't know how Georgie fits in. And eventually they all become intermingled, and I think just how she's able to do that, following these different narratives where it's like you follow, even though you're following different perspectives and people in different settings, it doesn't feel like the plot is kind of stop and go. It helps, she does in a way that keeps the plot progressing through these different perspectives, which I think makes it a lot of fun and very unique. I don't know what she's going to be working on next now that this kind of trilogy is done, but yeah, like, and you don't really need to read these books in any order. You can read them any order you want, in order of publication, in chronological order, it doesn't matter. So they kind of, even though there are kind of they are connected throughout time, you don't need to read, they can be a standalone if you want them to. But yeah, she's just an amazing author that shows, like, that showcases like actual people with some fictionalized story around them, but also does in a way that is very entertaining and raises a lot of kind of just showcases the women's story in very much a male-dominated historical record. And lastly, I have Barbara Nickless, and she is the author of the Sydney Parnell series, and then she has a newer series as well that I haven't read yet, so don't come at me. But basically, she is like what I feel like a lot with like the crime genre. It's very cookie cutter. There isn't a lot to distinguish one series from an author, but I think Barbara Nickless has done something very unique here. Her character of Sydney is very complex and dynamic. She is suffering from PTSD by working over in Afghanistan during the war, and it kind of, a lot of the books in here, even though they're centered around murder, there's underlining themes of how veterans who come back from war, like when they go into war, they get all this training and preparation to kind of be as best prepared as they can to this war environment, but there are very limited resources to help them to adjust back to civilian life, in particular focusing on the limited and like minimal efforts that are put into helping veterans specifically with PTSD. And so that is a very common theme throughout this, but her books are just a lot of fun. Again, I have not heard anyone talk about this author or this series, so it makes me a little sad just because it is so amazing, and just it's very much unique from a lot of the male written crime series. And I think and she also has a sidekick, a canine companion named Clyde, who is a former military dog, which is also fun as well. Who doesn't like a little canine companion? But yeah, these, like, they're just very interesting. Sydney, like, is with every book she's evolving and changing, and she's overcoming this like PTSD, which is the kind of overarching narrative throughout the series here, and just kind of moving forward with her life and finding ways to do that. So I think that is something that is really unique. And yeah, if you're looking for a new crime series, I would recommend the Inspector Gamache series by Louise Penny, or this series as well, which, like I said, I haven't really read anything like this, so yeah, highly recommend. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite authors are that you think are underrated. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.